So good morning, students, and welcome to Macro and Microeconomics at Victor Valley College. Hopefully everyone that's watching this video today is healthy and has not experienced any significant impacts of COVID-19. And if you have, my prayers and heart is with you and your family, friends. It is because of COVID-19 that we are in this modality. This class this video that you're watching, you would normally see myself, Professor Henry D. Young, standing in front of you in a shirt and tie, in most cases some form of a coat or vest, to formally introduce myself and the course that I teach. But as a response to the challenges in our world today, because of the pandemic, you all are sitting in front of your computers. So with that being said, I wanted to walk you through just a couple of things that I would suggest that you do as you embark upon this learning opportunity at Victor Valley College. Keep in mind that you will experience some frustrations with not having your professor, at your disposal. Again, between the times of 9:30 to 11, or if you're in the microeconomics class, 12:45 to 2. So I know that that's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a challenge for me on a daily basis as I'm sitting here at home developing or grading content, and I won't be able to actually interact with my students and compile notes on the board and discuss with my students things, economic concepts, how, in this case, the election will impact the price of goods and services, discussing the unemployment level and how and what policies may need to be enacted to impact or increase or decrease unemployment, shall I say. And lastly, of course, as we live together on this earth, we are experiencing significant social injustices, systemic racism, and situations where marginalized individuals within our economy are not being taken care of. These are also economic problems, as you'll recognize that any problem in this world where there is limits is an economic problem. Now, the two domains that you students will learn, those of you in the macroeconomics class, is that the two domains of economics exist. Macro, at least for right now as you're learning, macro embodies the entire society. We call it the aggregate society. So in this case, policies that you will learn about, theories that you will learn, will impact the entire population. That is, of course, provided that the entire population, let's say California, we could say Apple Valley, we could say Victorville, as we narrow down the population, that a problem that exists, in this case it might be unemployment, is impacting the entire society in some way. We call that ceteris paribus, or shall I say, not, we don't call it ceteris paribus, but the term used for all things being equal, that we can sample a population and infer how a policy might impact all individuals within that population. The term is called ceteris paribus. Formally, it's cateris paribus, but I like ceteris paribus, rolls off my tongue a lot better. Over 26 years I've been teaching economics, and it's cateris paribus. I just don't like that. But at any rate, on the other hand, in the microeconomics class, it's not the aggregate whole. It's the marginal whole. That is, how does a policy impact each individual and to what degree? How does a policy impact a corporation and to what degree? And when I use the term degree in terms of what is the level of sensitivity or the level of impact that a policy may have. So you'll find as we look at the unemployment later on in class, and we'll talk about how that impacts the aggregate whole. And it is a macroeconomic concern. On the microeconomic side, a business owner says, hey, marginally, in order for me to make money, in order for me to stay solvent and sustain my business model, I may have to lay people off. So there's a contradiction in terms. Macro says we want low unemployment. Micro says, well, if there is unemployment, so be it. So as you think about those things, and again, I realize that if you're watching this video here in the next hour, you're in the macroeconomics class, you'll say, well, for the time being, Professor Young, let's just focus on macroeconomics, and I'll do that. So mainly the one thing I want to do today is to kind of talk to you about the weekly study routine that you should embody on a weekly basis. And as I mentioned in my original video, I will more than likely hold a Zoom, maybe once every other week, give or take. And again, just to discuss things with students that I feel that might be more pertinent. My thought is, as we get into some of the more in-depth algebraic and math kind of concepts and graphical analysis concepts, I'll do some Zooms to discuss things. I'll lecture on a particular element, and then of course you will notice later on that I do have office hours on Mondays from 1 to 4:30, and on Tuesdays from 5 to 6 p.m. And those are times that if a student has a particular issue, he or she could email me, and I can set up an individual Zoom, and we could talk about anything related to the course, the term project, various things that might come up. Okay. So what you want to do, again, as you come into this class on a weekly basis, which the other video that I did discussed, is make sure to review the announcements. And sometimes you'll see that the announcements may be somewhat redundant because in this case, this is going to be a global announcement that talks to just some general areas of the class, right? And so this is where that video was that I did the other day. It was located. Most of you more than likely watched it. Remember, I would highly recommend that you subscribe to my YouTube channel. And I don't have a YouTube channel with videos and all these other things. Basically, my YouTube channel consists of videos that I've done for my classes over the past years. And no more, no less. So don't expect to be entertained at my YouTube video. It's really an information hub for my students. So as you look at this announcements page, again, you might say, okay, but Prof, I know it's Tuesday. I looked at this announcement yesterday. There is no different. Great. My thing is, with my lecture classes, or should I say my remote classes, it is important that you review your announcements at least 3 times per week. Because I could come in and say something about some concept. I generally won't add assignments, but if I do, I'm going to make an announcement for it. Okay. And just a quick peek is all I would require there. So then after you've seen the announcements, then you want to go into your modules. And the modules is really the meat of this sandwich here, this learning sandwich. So you'll notice that I've placed the introductory video that is in the announcements here. And so any and all Zoom videos, Screencast-O-Matic videos that are done, they will all be saved here so that you can go back and watch them. Okay. So introductorily, if I were standing in front of you today, I would show you the book, which now we all know based upon the first video is the Hubbard O'Brien 7th edition, and also that we need the APA 6th edition manual, not 7th edition, 6th edition. Okay. And so as you come into the course, again this morning, those of you that would normally see me standing in front of you, then as a replacement to the lecture, then you're going to do a number of things. First and foremost, you're going to read the chapter assigned, taking notes and focusing on any graphical models introduced in the chapter. Hugely important. Again, economics is multifaceted in terms of what it offers in terms of academics. In essence, what you see in writing in most cases, and not in every case, let's say 6% of the time, whatever you see written, you can more than likely express that same written expression in some graphical or mathematical fashion. And so that is the heart of economics, is being able to compare and or contrast or moreover model verbiage, definitions, explanations in some way using math or graphs. And so in that first item, that's why I mentioned that it's very important that you identify as you're going through your e-text to identify any graphical models in the chapter and make sure you give yourself some time to think about what the graph is saying. Very, very important, because a lot of students miss that component. And now that we're not in lecture and we're in remote learning, you won't be able to see me express a lot of things over and over again in terms of repetitive routines, mathematically and or graphically, on the board, where you're actually copying what I'm writing down on the board and then thinking about it. So that is very important. Next, you want to review the lecture notes, and the lecture notes are housed in the modules, which we'll take a look at in just a moment. But the lecture notes are also, you can also obtain them from the My Econ Lab. That is, as you'll notice on the left of this page, you have the mastering component, this mastering component here. And then 3, review lecture interactives located in My Econ Lab. Now keep in mind the My Econ Lab lecture interactives, they are not part of your overall grade. However, when I assign that, I have to give it a grade point metric to assign it within the publisher's software area. Okay, so I beg of you to take time to look at those lecture interactives, not because it says that there's 10 points that you can earn, because that's not part of your grade, but truly because those lecture interactives are important. They emphasize things that I would normally emphasize in a lecture session. So then after you looked at your lecture interactives, then I might say take a preview of your homework. Now in the first couple of weeks, you are allowed to complete your homework twice. But as we get into the semester, you'll only be able to do your homework one time. And so it's important that you've studied before you do your homework. Again, the primary goal there is that the harder you concentrate on your homework, the better you're going to do, in my mind, theoretically. And then the higher score you get on your homework, the better your quizzes are going to be. Okay? And or your exams. Then after your homework, you want to complete any current news assignments that have been assigned for your class. And those are just additional one video, one question type items that I include just to give you some different view of the economic landscape and the theories that we're covering. And then you want to review your chapter PowerPoint slides. You'll notice I put the chapter PowerPoint slides all the way at level 6, or should I say at step 6, because I don't want the chapter PowerPoint slides are long and labor intensive. And they won't give you the primary, they'll give you some overall views of everything that's in the chapter, right? But though the lecture notes, in my mind, and the lecture interactives are equally important. I should not diminish the importance of PowerPoint slides. And they are important. They do give students another way to view the information being learned. But it's not until after you've reviewed your PowerPoint slides should you attempt your quizzes. Keep in mind now, quizzes, if you're using, you must use Microsoft, or shall I say Safari. The Safari does not work well with My Econ Lab. However, most computers, obviously now you can download Chrome onto your Apple device, as I have done. So you want to use Chrome or Firefox as your search engine. And then that will allow you to have no problems taking your quizzes. Keep in mind that the quizzes are timed. They're also administered in what we call a lockdown browser. So when you start the quiz, you have to finish the quiz. You can't start it and then say, oh, I haven't studied, and I'm going to go back and look at some more stuff, then I'm going to come back to the quiz. It's just, once you start it, you have to finish it. And as I mentioned, they are timed. And this is the same routine, or should I say the same method that the exams are administered. Once you start an exam, you have to finish the exam. It's in a lockdown browser. If you leave the browser that you're on, then the quiz will kick you out. And then you'll have to email the professor, and, I will reopen quizzes and exams on a case-by-case basis. My point is that if it happens once, I'm good. I know that technology is what it is. But twice, 3 times, I'm probably not going to allow you to retake those quizzes or exams. Again, the purpose is if you were in a lecture class, when you come in to take your quiz, you can go to the bathroom, but you can't take your book, right? So we are here at Victor Valley College. We want to, at least in the business department that I teach in, we want to make sure that the rigor in the online classes or remote classes is the same that you would have in the face-to-face classes, because, with struggle comes success. Again, it is important to embody what you don't know, so that ultimately you can learn and really put in the time to learn things. And it is in that, shall I say, the not knowing, I might say the failing forward, that is important in any learning structure. So those are the primary things that you want to do, those top 8. And then the incidentals, of course, is to read your APA 6th edition. And this is very boring reading, but it's very important, because as you're writing your paper here later in this semester, and as we'll do some discussion boards, it's important that APA 6th edition writing style is utilized. And so I say you want to familiarize yourself with APA videos on YouTube emphasizing writing an APA 6th edition paper, level headings, clarity and conciseness in writing, and then using Google Scholar for references. And so all these things are important, maybe not right away, but as we get through the course, you will this week or next week be identifying a country that you want to write about if you're in the macroeconomics class, or a corporation that you want to research if you're in the microeconomics class. And then in that regard, we'll have, as I mentioned, we'll have some small writing assignments where you'll have to develop some things. And you'll notice in our discussion board this week, I talk about the meal plan. And the meal plan basically says that as a writer writes, we want to include in every paragraph, if possible, a main point. What is the main thesis that you're trying to, or the main point that you're trying to express? E for evidence. What evidence have you gathered? And again, in 100% of the time, the evidence is going to be something that is cited, an in-text citation or a parenthetical citation of some sort. Then the analysis for the A. That is your writing. What is your takeaway from the 2 or 3 sentences that you've developed in that paragraph and thus far? And then L for the lead out or the lead back. Again, in some cases, students will summarize what they said, but not to be redundant in their lead out or lead back sentence. And in other cases, it may be a transition from one paragraph to another. So it might be more of a lead out versus a lead back. And that's dependent upon how you're writing your particular section. And then, as I mentioned, using Google Scholar. And then the second point, which is a little bit off alignment here, which I'll fix, is researching using the VVC library resource. Okay, so I'm going to go to that real quick so that you can see where that is. If you wanted to use that, you go into student, and then you'd go all the way down to library. And then you'll notice here that we have various items: library catalog, articles and databases, internet sources, research tools. Okay. And then internet resources, business and economics. And so these are some of the sources that you can use. You will experience when you go into Google Scholar that some of the items that you're attempting to use in Google Scholar are going to ask you to pay for the article, and you never want to pay for the article. Okay, so subsequently you can use the library database that we have on campus to find information about your subjects. Okay. And so let's just say we said we were doing a paper on Spain and we wanted to highlight the unemployment. There is a section in our paper on Spain unemployment. Okay, and so talks a little bit about educated for migration, blind spots, yada yada. Okay, so you could choose to actually use this source if you wanted. The cool part about this is that when you use this source, you can go over here to the site and you can actually pick the citation style, and this is what your reference would look like. And so you would just cut this and paste this in your reference section. Now, going more into detail about this particular element, because there's a number of things that also are required APA that you may need, and that is in the fact that if this article has what we call a DOI, a digital object identifier, you will also need that. Okay. Again, this is why YouTube is so important, as I mentioned earlier. So that's just a informal rundown of how you would find certain information. All right, so I hope this video was helpful, and again, welcome to economics. Utilize your day when you leave, as we finish the video, completing something within this primary or incidental area of learning routine. And again, we will talk soon.